Oh, this one might get me in trouble. What's up everybody, and welcome to this month's Patreon pick video. If you guys are not aware, this is actually the second time that I've done this. It's a new perk that I'm doing for my patrons where every single month I put out a PSA for them to drop some ideas for a video. The top ones are the ones that I'm most interested in. I put into a poll and let them vote. Last month was the top 10 twist endings, or top 10 movie plot twists, and this month is top 10 final girls, which is a huge video because people are passionate about their final girls. Which ones are the best, which ones are the strongest, which ones mean the most to female empowerment and to the horror genre. There's so many different ways that you can look at these different characters and say which one is the best and which one didn't quite make the cut. Now let me say right off the bat, this is gonna be a controversial list as always. It feels like every fucking ranking that I do just gets people angry. But listen, there's a lot of different things going into which ones I put on top. First of all is how good of a character they are. Then there's how well that character is utilized in the movie or the franchise if they're a recurring character. And then I would be lying if I did not say that yes, how much I like the movies or franchises that they're in would not, skew where they are in this list a little bit. So I'm not gonna have any honorable mentions. I'm just gonna have a straight cut 10 final girls. If your favorite did not make this list, please don't be insulted. Just put me down below. Tell me your top 10 final girls, why you think they're the best, why I should have put them on my list, anything like that. We can discuss that in the comments section. And if you guys want to join in the fun for any further Patreon pick videos, the link down below for not only my social media links like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, but also my Patreon link is just below in the video description. So after you get done liking and sharing and hitting that subscribe button because you love this ranking so much, please check the video description down below and check out my Patreon so that you can check out not only the best way to help this channel grow, but get cool perks like choosing videos like this. Now, without all further ado, top 10 final girls. Number 10, rounding out the bottom of my top 10 list, and there's been a lot of final girls, so this is not an insult putting them at number 10. I felt like I had to pick at least one person from this franchise, otherwise I would just be like shooed away from the horror community forever. And this is a really good final girl. This is the best one in this franchise in my opinion, and that is Ginny from Friday the 13th Part 2. Now, if you haven't seen my reviews for the entire Friday the 13th franchise, I am not a fan of quite a few of the characters in those movies, but especially the final girl in the first movie, Alice. I think she's actually one of the worst final girls ever. When you get to the second movie, it's a huge upgrade in Ginny because not only is she a more likable character, but when you get to the end, when a final girl is supposed to rise, whenever she becomes the final girl, she kicks ass.
Jason, Mother is talking to you!
She's running away from Jason, she's knocking him over left and right, making him look like a damn fool, and she's smart. This is the iconic moment where she goes into that little shrine, sees Mrs. Voorhees' decapitated head and says, you know what, I'm gonna get one over on this son of a bitch. So she puts the sweater on, outsmarts Jason just long enough to get over on him to where she pretends to be Pamela Voorhees. Iconic, badass stuff. And it's actually kind of a shame that we haven't seen Ginny recur in some of these Friday the 13th movies. I think that if they were ever going to do like a throwback to where they do a sequel, Halloween 2018 style, where we're gonna go back and pretend some movies didn't exist, I think bringing her character back would actually be very welcome for Friday the 13th fans. So Ginny, number 10. Number 9 is gonna be Sarah from The Descent. Now, The Descent is a movie that I have not reviewed yet. I need to get on that, but something that is great about this character is that she has such a growth throughout this movie. The movie starts off with tragedy to where her husband and her kid die in this horrific car accident, and obviously she's fucked up from that, and her friends are trying to kind of get her out and try to get her mind off of things and take her, into this cave so that they can go spelunking and do all that crazy shit. And through most of the movie, she's still that kind of jittery, broken person, and then somewhere by the middle of the second act towards the third act, you see this huge growth of character to where she not only starts figuring out what these cave monsters, how they work, but not only that, but how to defeat them. She seems like the most in charge of all of them as far as not letting fear take a hold of her. She kind of, I haven't seen the movie in a while. I remember it being hinted at throughout the film that she kind of knows that her best friend was sleeping with her husband and kind of that might have led to pieces of this car accident. So she kind of knows that, but she doesn't really want to attack that yet. And by the end of the movie, she attacks it. She's just a badass character. It's a badass movie that I really do need to review sometime. So, yeah, Sarah, number 9. Number 8 is one that I don't think probably shows up on anybody's list, but this is a very underrated final girl in my opinion, and the movie's awesome. And that's Helen from Candyman. Helen.
Helen.
Yes?
Helen.
Who is that?
It's all about you, Helen. Helen is a great character from start to finish in that movie because she's a strong female character. She's not somebody that is broken or really has anything that she has to rise above, aside from the fact that her husband's fucking around on her, but she doesn't have any problems facing that. She's just not aware of it. But the fact that she is seeking out the Candyman, she kind of, makes him rise, for lack of a better term, in the film. She's responsible for a lot of these deaths, and she keeps kind of getting put as the red herring for doing these deaths, so she's dealing with all of that. And by the end of the film, not only does she triumph over Candyman, but she saves an innocent child and then becomes the myth herself. Now, I mean, ignore 2 and 3. God knows what this Jordan Peele produced film is going to do. Nia DaCosta is the director. Just want to put that out there. But whatever this new Candyman film is going to do as far as kind of bridging the gap between what happened at the end of Candyman and this new one, we'll see. But if you just take the isolated film Candyman, it ends with the Candyman kind of being vanquished and Helen becoming this new Cabrini Green myth to where she's the savior. She had, was in fire and burned to death trying to save this innocent child. And at the end, she gets one over on her fuckbag fiance, husband, whatever he was, to where he goes and says her name, and then she comes out of nowhere and just guts his ass with the fucking hook. Groin to gullet, bitch.
What's the matter, Trevor? Scared of something?
She is a great final girl, and one of the few final girls that you will see make the transformation into evil herself, but it's still badass. Number 7's kind of a new kid on the block-ish. Erin from You're Next. That was a surprise, wasn't it? You're Next, kind of this, standard fare for a home invasion film, or so you think, and then all of a sudden Erin comes to the play and she is this badass killer that just takes out all of these dudes that are trying to get into this house and just wipes the fucking floor with all of them. It's not a movie that I talk about very often, and it's not a movie that I watch very often, but you want to talk about a movie that's completely flipped on its head by how badass the final girl is, you cannot get any better than You're Next. This chick has kind of become the modern standard for female empowerment and for final girls because she's just so kick-ass. Like, every scenario she knows some kind of a training that she's had that's going to get her out of it. She knows how to fight, she knows how to forge weapons, she knows how to survive these situations. We need a sequel to You're Next. Bring this chick back. Number 6, another one that I probably will not see on anybody else's list, but not only do I love this movie so much that it's stuck in my mind, but this character is just awesome because of all of the changes that she goes through. And that is Mia from Evil Dead, the remake. This is, or sequel, whatever the fuck you want to call it, the newest Evil Dead film. Mia is great because she starts off as this very broken, damaged character to where she has a drug addiction, all of her friends are taking her to this cabin in the woods to try to detox her, and throughout most of the film, she's kind of the face of the evil.
You are all going to die tonight.
She gets, taken over by the tree, the evil is inside of her, and she's kind of like the face for this presence that's around the cabin in the woods, but by the end of the second act, beginning of the third act, she gets kind of redeemed by her brother, gets brought back, the evil's expelled from her, and then you get the most metal as fuck climax to a movie to where You get raining blood, a fucking demon's digging her way out of the ground and chasing her. She has to tear her own arm off to be able to escape because she wants to live so much, that will to live, one of the biggest key components to a final girl. And then she shoves a chainsaw right down that fucker's throat and just, oh, this ending's awesome.
I will feast on your soul.
Face on this motherfucker!
So the fact that you have such a spectrum of what this character goes through, to where she's this broken, damaged, like seems like the weakest one in the room, then becomes the face of the evil of the movie for the majority of the runtime, then gets redeemed and expels the evil with a chainsaw to the fucking throat. Mia, you damn right this is where she's going. Number 5. Oh my God. Laurie Strode. All right, hear me out, Halloween fans. I know you guys love me so much ever since my Halloween 2018 review. Laurie Strode is top 5 of all final girls of all time, so this is not a slight. I know she's probably the fan favorite, and most lists, if you look up online, will probably have her at number 1, but hear me out. Yes, she is a great character. Yes, Jamie Lee Curtis is great in the role, and I don't hate Scout Taylor Compton in the role either. But this character has been so many different directions in this franchise to where she's kind of all over the place for me. And don't get me wrong, I'm still, I mean, we'll see with Halloween Kills and what Halloween Ends brings. If they bring a really great closure to her character and Michael, she might jump up on this list for me. And had Halloween 2018 been the final confrontation that they billed it as for a year plus and didn't cop out at the end, in my opinion, she might have been higher on this list if that movie had ended great. But you have Halloween, you know, going one direction, just a random babysitter who kind of rises to the occasion. Great in that original film. She kind of set the standard for Final Girl, obviously. She's the OG. You get to Halloween 2, and very similar, but you know, just different. She's out of the movie for most of the time, but very similar to that first character. So that's kind of one branch. Then you get to Halloween H2O, which is probably my favorite, you know, Laurie Strode movie as far as what she does. I don't think it's better than Halloween 1978, I'm not saying that, but as far as her utilization in the film where she has to be a badass and kind of rise through this occasion and get past all this PTSD and take on Michael head on with this axe, and you know, like a scene where she locks everybody out of the university and turns around and yells his name, Michael! That is my Laurie Strode. That's what I like to see, so she's fucking awesome in that. But then they fuck it up in Halloween Resurrection and make her a dumbass and a crazy bitch, and she jumps off, whatever with that movie. Then you get the Rob Zombie movies. Another interpretation of Laurie Strode. You know, the first movie is kind of standard, then you get the second one and she's just way out there, which, again, I like that movie, but her character's different. Then you get to Halloween 2018 and it's a totally different Laurie Strode.
Happy Halloween, Michael.
Where she's, you know, battle hardened, and that's the only thing in the world that she cares about, and she can't have any relationship with her family, and then God knows what we're going to see with Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. It's a character that I feel like has been done a million different ways, and I'm of the opinion, I actually have a very popular video on my channel to where when they first announced that they were coming back with Laurie Strode versus Michael whenever they were writing the script for Halloween 2018, I was like, why? Go somewhere else with this character. We've had enough Laurie versus Michael movies. I still am kind of that opinion, and I don't love the fact that they were kind of siblings at one point, even though I love H2O, but when they said they were going to get rid of that, I was like, cool, that's something different, but then they still kind of handcuffed them together for 2 more movies, so I have a lot of thoughts on this. Basically what I'm getting down to is that she's a great character. Yes, the Halloween franchise is iconic, it's a great franchise, even though I'm kind of burnt on it a little bit because of reasons, but her character is just so inconsistent, the way that she's written and the way that she's given to us as fans, that to me, she is not number 1. Number 4 is Nancy Thompson from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Now, yes, obviously I am a Freddy fanatic first, so it makes sense that I would appreciate the characters of that franchise more than I would the Halloween franchise. So you guys should have expected that. But you might be surprised that she's this low. Nancy Thompson to me is a great final girl in every single movie that she shows up in, you know, except for the remake. We ain't gonna talk about that one. That does knock her down to number 4, let's be honest. Rooney Mara didn't even try. But as far as the Heather Langenkamp version of the original continuity of these films, the first film, she's just a badass, take no shit character in the first film. Obviously she's scared, she wants to know what's going on, but she doesn't feel helpless at any point in that film. And by the end, when she's setting these traps and she's gonna use herself as bait to bring Freddy out and just doing things that she has no idea if it's gonna work or not, but this is the only avenue that she feels like she can take to try to vanquish this evil, and she just does it. She just takes on the evil head on. Makes Freddy a little bitch with all these little booby traps, and then eventually vanquishes the evil until you get that, that little tacked on ending that still bothers me, even though I love that original film. Then you get to Dream Warriors, and again, she's just a great character. She's strong from the beginning. As soon as you get to that scene where he sees her, she's like, fuck this guy again. No fear. Takes these kids, listens to them, gives them all of the tools that she knows to try to help them out. She kind of becomes like this mother character to them, this leader, and does everything that she can. And as far as the story of that film, she vanquishes the evil again. She gets killed, but she also takes Freddy with her and helps them to kind of vanquish the evil before he gets anything more. And then if you take it even farther, even though it's not Nancy, but Wes Craven's New Nightmare, she kind of has to become Nancy, for lack of a better word, by the end of the film, with the way that the mythology of that works. She's badass in that movie too, and she never feels helpless. She's scared, but she never feels helpless again. To me, that's what a final girl is. That's what an iconic final girl is, when she's just strong, whenever she is tough, whenever she looks for the solutions to the problems and just goes after it, and she's the one who's taking charge of the situation and just gives the big middle finger to whatever evil she's facing. That is Nancy Thompson. Now we're into the top 3, and number 3 for me, which again is probably gonna be a little bit controversial that it's 3 and not 1, is Ellen Ripley from the Alien franchise.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Now again, the first 2 films, if that was it, she might be number 1, honestly. But for me, if you know my reviews, if you know my ranking, I absolutely despise what they did in Alien 3, and I don't even really like what they did with her character in Alien 3. To me, it just kind of strips away everything that was great about her in the first 2 films, especially Aliens. And then Alien Resurrection, while I like it more than most people, that's not exactly Ripley. That's a totally different character. She's kind of promiscuous and she's a little bit more seductive, and that was just never Ripley. Ripley was always tough. She never really had to portray sexuality. She was attractive and she had this, sexual allure to her because she's such a badass, but she was always beyond that. You know what I mean? She was always above that. The one person that's left to face this unknown alien creature in Ridley Scott's film, and she triumphs with that. And then in Aliens, even more, where she's put into this situation where she's basically told to hush, let these Marines do their job, and the Marines just get taken out left and right, and she ends up being the one that has to take on the alien queen by herself. Man, that is some iconic shit. That is some badass shit. That is Final Girl 101 right there. And if we ever do get a follow-up like that Neil Blomkamp idea that was gonna go back and follow up directly to Aliens, she might rise up in this list, but unfortunately for me, the 2 of the 4 movies that she's in just kind of tarnishes her character a little bit. So even though the first 2 are so awesome, I gotta put her at number 3, which is still way the fuck up there. Ellen Ripley is badass. Now we are at our top 2, and these were somewhat difficult for me to place. I had to kind of, sit back and figure out which one means more to me as a movie fan, and that's how I kind of came up with which one was number 1 and number 2. And number 2 for me is Sidney Prescott from the Scream franchise, which might surprise a lot of you because even though I like the Scream films and I rated them pretty high in my reviews, I've said numerous times, I'm not a Scream fanatic. I didn't grow up loving these films. This was never my favorite franchise. It's still not my favorite franchise. It's probably not even in my top 5. I enjoy it, but it's just not my thing. You know, it's not something that speaks to me and has a giant place carved out in my heart. But Sidney Prescott is a badass final girl. Not only is she in every single one of the movies, but every single movie she does all of the things that I've been praising about these final girls in every one. She's tough, she takes no shit, she outsmarts the killer.
Oh shit.
Think again. It's your turn to scream, asshole.
She, after the first film, is very strong and kind of, you know, guides these new characters trying to get them out of this situation, especially the fourth film, which kind of bites her in the ass if you know the reveal of those killers. But she is a character that through every single one of these films is just tough. She's tough as nails. She's not gonna live in fear. That's kind of one of the big themes in Scream 3 especially, is kind of rising above that fear. In all these killers, you know, like, I love the one-liners that they give her where, like, they're giving their speech and she's like, Jesus Christ, I've heard this shit before, just fucking come on.
It's all about execution.
Yeah. Well, you're forgetting one thing about Billy Loomis.
What's that?
I fucking killed him. Piece of shit!
That's the kind of stuff that I like to see, and that's what I love about her character. She's like, enough with this fucking speech, bring your knife over here and let's get this done, bitch. But number 1 for me, get ready for this bombshell, Sarah Connor. Yes, Sarah Connor from the Terminator franchise. Now, I've said before, if you guys watch my reviews, I view the first Terminator film as a slasher film. Yes, it has action, yes, it has sci-fi, but stylistically and structure-wise, that is a slasher film. Obviously, the franchise has kind of evolved since then. It hasn't quite went back to that style of film yet. It's much more sci-fi action, especially with T2. But nonetheless, this is a final girl. This is a girl that is rising through this situation to where you have this cybernetic killer from the future coming back and just slashing everybody with her name throughout the entire film, killing anybody that gets in his way to try to take her out. And with the assistance of Kyle Reese, obviously, in the first film, she triumphs and takes out the Terminator and lives to become the mother of the savior, if you will, with John Connor. You get to the second film, and she is full-on bona fide badass. This is like the definitive Sarah Connor in T2 Judgment Day, where she's been training, she's been building muscle, she's been waiting, kind of impatiently, but kind of patiently, for the day to come when she would have to face her fate again. And then it's just charged face first into her whenever you have Arnold and Eddie Furlong come in and break her out. And you have just one of the greatest films of all time, honestly, which is probably why it's a lot higher on this list than it would be first for a lot of other people. That T2 is probably like in my top 5 films of all time. But she's just, the whole film is almost, if not more badass than Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger can't be killed, but for her being immortal, she goes through just as much hell and just gets through war-torn to hell in that film, all the way to the end, leading to another triumph. Now, this is where you're gonna see paths split in movie fandom. I am one of the people that really enjoyed Terminator Dark Fate. You can watch my review, you can watch my spoiler chat with Sean Chandler because he enjoyed it a lot. For all the reasons why, I'm not gonna get into all of it, and I don't feel like defending it again. But for me, for somebody that really enjoyed that film and what they did worked for, that movie solidified for me that the Terminator franchise is about Sarah, not about John. And in this movie, while she's obviously older, she's not as capable as she was whenever, you know, the 1991, whenever T2 came out. She's just as grizzled. She's probably a little bit more war-torn and a little bit more cynical and, you know, a little bit more not taking any shit and just this grizzled person, this battle-hardened person down to her core. But she once again has to rise to the situation of being this protector for what will eventually be the savior for this timeline. And to me, that just solidified even more how great and how strong of a character that she is, that she's willing to take her losses, you know, try not to spoil anything because it's still a newer film, take her losses and not let them defeat her, not let them bury her as a person or as a character, and still rise to that occasion to being that final girl, being that person who's going to be that protector, being that person that's going to take on the future, take on these cybernetic robots and, you know, basically just take on the world to achieve her mission. That's some awesome stuff. So, you know, Sarah Connor for me, not only is one of the most underrated final girls because so many people don't really view Terminator as a slasher film, but to me, she's easily the most badass. And like I said, I mean, it'd be a really tough choice between her and Ripley if Alien and Aliens were the only movies that we got. But basically all the same things that I said about Ripley is the same things I'm gonna say about Sarah Connor. But for me personally, I enjoy all three of the films that she is in very much. And I think that that arc is much stronger by the end than Ellen Ripley's was. So for me, she rises to the top as the #1 final girl of all time.
You're a terminated fucker.
So what do you guys think? What are your top 10 final girls? Let me know down below. Give me some reasons. Don't just give me lists. That way I can understand where you're coming from and where you view these films, why they mean so much to you, why these characters mean so much to you. I'd love to have that conversation down below, so check that out. Please like and share this video and hit that subscribe button if this is your first time. There's much more to enjoy. And as always, guys, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.